Hello everybody, Bloomer here again with episode 7 of my Templar training series. Incidentally, this is also going to be the last episode in the series, at least for the near future, so we'll see. In the last few episodes I've shown you how to identify and stun your pursuers, but today we're going to switch roles again, and I'm going to show you how to kill tricky targets that are using defensive abilities like the ones I've just covered. So, let's get started. First, we'll take a look at how to counter some of the core defensive abilities, namely Smoke, Mute, and Charge. There are some common tactics that work against all three of these, so we'll start with those. One of the most common ways to counter these abilities is to run up a wall. This will drain your approach meter, but you'll make up some of the points with the acrobatic bonus, and more importantly, you'll avoid getting stunned. This works well against Smoke and Mute, but Charge is a little trickier. Your target is actually invincible while Charge is active, so if you run up the wall you'll avoid the stun, but you won't get a kill prompt until the charge wears off. My friend Becca will help me demonstrate this along with some other techniques throughout the episode. You can also use an offensive mute, which will disable your target's abilities and their ability to stun. This isn't the most reliable technique due to lag, but you'll get the best results using mute at the maximum distance of 6 meters, possibly crafting it for range as well. Note that again with Charge, you can prevent the stun, but you won't be able to kill your target until the charge wears off. Another tactic is to rush your target before the smoke bomb can deploy, or before the other defensive abilities kick in with the lag. This will again drain your approach meter, so you shouldn't do this unless you're sure that your target has seen you, and even then it's not guaranteed to work. Another option is the offensive smoke bomb. Offensive smoke bombs are somewhat controversial within the community, but I'm going to cover them in this episode without commenting on the merits of them. An offensive smoke bomb can be an effective counter against Smoke and Mute, especially if it's crafted for duration. It's also an effective way to stop a charge, since the charge sound effect will usually give you enough warning time to drop a smoke bomb. Finally, there's the offensive decoy. As I mentioned last episode, decoys will always run towards a locked persona, so the general idea is to use this to send a decoy towards your target, in hopes that they'll waste a defensive ability on them. If they stun the decoy, you'll even get a lure bonus as well. Now, this tactic doesn't work all that often, especially since there will be no stun prompt above the decoy's head, but when it does work, it's pretty satisfying and amusing to watch. Now that we've covered some of the general tactics, let's look at ways to counter specific abilities, starting with Smoke. One of the most important properties about Smoke is that you can kill your target after they've dropped a smoke bomb, as long as you're not touching the smoke cloud. So if you can avoid the smoke bomb but still manage to get a kill prompt to show up, you can still take out your target. If you hit your target with knives, they'll often instinctively drop their smoke bomb as well, in which case you'll want to again try your best to maneuver yourself into a position where you can get the kill prompt to appear outside of the smoke cloud. If your target is throwing a smoke bomb, you can try to run and avoid it before it deploys. You'll generally want to run perpendicular to the direction of your target, since they'll be less likely to be leading the smoke bomb in that direction. You can also cancel a smoke bomb throwing animation with knives, although the timing window on this can be very narrow. You can also use knives to cancel a charge, although in practice this is very difficult to time unless they charge from very far away. Now if your target hits you with knives, you can still use some abilities like Smoke Bomb and Mute to prevent them from stunning you, or you can also charge your way out of the knives effect after the initial delay of being hunched over. Next, let's look at tripwire bombs. Be extremely wary of any target that's put themselves in a corner, and keep an eye out for tripwire bombs which are visible on the ground. The blast range is shorter than the trigger range, so if you skim the edge of the tripwire bomb, you can set it off without being affected by it. Of course, you can also sometimes just walk around the bomb entirely in some cases. Be also careful about targets that try to deceive you with abilities like Disguise, Decoy, or Bodyguard. A disguised target can be sometimes tricky to identify, but use your line of sight and proximity indicators to get a rough idea of where they are. The general rule is that you're looking for someone who looks like an NPC persona, which I covered in episode 4, but that you can tell is actually a player. either through the lack of walking animations, wobbling, or more obvious actions like jumping in and out of a hay bale. If you can tell for sure that someone is a player and you have a kill prompt, then they must be your target. Also watch out for bodyguards, which you can sometimes catch turning into your target's persona when they are activated if a similar persona isn't nearby. One way to deal with them is to just run around them before they can stun you. But another option is to stun the bodyguard themselves to get rid of them. This will give you a way to your target, but it's still a better option than getting stunned by the bodyguard. Another thing to watch out for are decoys. One of the best ways to identify a decoy is to look for the blue arrow. A blue arrow on a decoy usually won't show up until just before they wind down from their running, whereas for a player the blue arrow is typically triggered much sooner, as you can see in these clips here. Be wary of any persona that immediately runs away like a decoy, and use your compass to help verify whether or not that's the case. Finally, be careful that your target doesn't lure you into a corner stun. Take advantage of the camera by swinging it around corners, and also use the environment when you can to circumvent their attempted stuns. With everything discussed in this episode so far, it's very important to know your opponent. Remember what abilities they like to use, and think about how good they are at identifying their pursuers so that you know if they're going to try to stun or deceive you. Now, because this is the final episode for now, I've saved some of the most fundamental and important tips for last. The first tip is for when you're climbing a wall. When you can't climb any lower, your character will start to look down. Aw yeah. This is very important. The next tip is for when you're perched on a wire. You can alternate between hitting forward and back for some monkey moves. And finally, everyone needs to know how to walk the dinosaur. Hold down the high profile and fast walk buttons as if you're going to sprint, and then tap the analog stick in a single direction in a rhythm. And with that, you should have a good grasp on all the fundamentals of Assassin's Creed multiplayer. I hope you've enjoyed the series, and I hope you found it helpful. Be sure to come check out my channel for more Assassin's Creed videos, and good luck in the Animus. See ya!